Monday the 13th of July. Took the punt out after my meal and cruised gently into the weed beds, where lay, basking, the carp. The fish didn't seem to mind me, and I was able to drift right next to a mirror of maybe 30 pounds and a very big common. Suddenly, the potential of my position was realised, and I gently made for shore. Once there, I hurriedly got a rod, net and a tin of maggots, and after baiting up, drifted back into the weed beds. The sun was hot on my back, and my heart began to pound as I dapped that same big mirror carp with a bunch of maggots. The Lost Diary is a fishing diary from 1981. Which was quite an important time in my fishing life, because it was the time when my obsession with carp was just beginning to fade, and yet at the same time it had reached a kind of peak and it couldn't go any further. I went on up the lake and found a couple of fish who bolted as I approached, making huge swirls and opening up holes in the weeds. From above, it looked like a typhoon in a forest as the long fronds of hornwort swayed around and round in the turbulence. All I was really interested in was finding these wonderful lakes that had atmosphere, that had legends of huge fish, and there was real myths attached to all these lakes, but there was this one in particular, Redmire, which the diary is centred on. So the diary covers those last days, the last days of Redmire. It had been lost for, I don't know, nearly 30 years, and I was slightly miffed, because it had some good stories that I could only vaguely remember. And then this year, this last Christmas just gone, William was going through some old Christmas decorations in the box. What's in the bottom of this old box? And he shook the bottom out, and out popped this diary. And what is this? That's my lost diary. Oh my God! It was lovely just to relive it. So anyway, the diary is about that period. So it turned out to be 2 or 3 glasses of ale, as old Jack rambled on about his various adventures, some happy, some sad. He's been getting a few good trout from the Garran. Always carry a bit of tackle in my pocket, he said, but never use a rod. You're buggered if you use a rod. The keeper will see you. I think, well, it's not just carp fishing. There's some interesting days with the Golden Scale Club, which is this sort of slightly unofficial, radical club that I started back in, or rather formed itself, I should say, a few years earlier. So it's the early days of the Golden Scale Club, and it's a club that doesn't really exist. But we used to have, used to go on punting outings on the Thames, and we used to have our own lake and a little pond somewhere and bits of river. And it was just a gathering of friends. We needed a name to lease these ponds. What do you call yourselves? Oh, I don't know, the Golden Scale Club, because we used to fish for species with golden scales. And yeah, but it was a bunch of good eccentrics. And we'd mostly end up playing cricket. This fish felt like a fast-moving youngster, bolting down the margins to the right, taking me well under the trees, and by the feel of it, through some snags. When he stopped running, I got the pickup on and got a proper hold of things. And eventually he came in, and it was a beautiful fish of about 8 pounds, and I put him in a big sack and lowered it into the water so I could photograph him and release him in the morning. It's nice to read about that now, because it was before marriage, it was before mortgages and being parenthood and all the rest of it. So that it's rather nice to relive that feeling. You could do it there, I can do it again. Remember old Bunting, Dave, he said, turning to Dave, who was sitting at the table next to us. He used to go and move the dead carp that rolled up after spawning at Redmire. He was in the punt one day, and a fish came up with its head one side of the punt and its tail on the other. That must have been a big un, he said. And then he turned to me with his one grey eye and his one green eye, and he said, "You going to write a book someday?"